Good morning, everybody. I'm Gabe DeSanto. I'm the president of the Ontario High School Conservative Association. I'm glad that you're able to join us today. You may have noticed that we're back with a fresh new look. We changed it up a little bit. We changed up our little intro and our graphics, but rest assured, it's the same great interviews with some great guests. We're glad to have the MP for Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound joining us today, Alex Ruff. Alex is a retired infantry colonel from the Royal Canadian Regiment after more than 25 years of service. He commanded the infantry battalion, which was approximately 1,000 soldiers, and chief of staff for the Canadian contribution to the NATO training program in Afghanistan, and he has served as the deputy director for planning all Canadian armed forces operations, domestic and international. He has also worked as the chief of staff for multinational Ministerial Liaison Team, advising the Iraqi Ministry of Defense and the Iraqi Ministry of Interior in Baghdad, Iraq. He was elected in 2019 and is currently the official opposition deputy whip. Thank you, Alex, for joining me on the show, and most of all, thank you for your many years of service.
Thanks so much, Gabe. It's great to be here.
We thank you for coming on the show today, and we like to start off the show with a question and answer session. And all these questions are asked by our high school members from across Ontario and across Canada. So the first question comes from Jack in Milton, and he asks, transitioning from the military to becoming a politician is a pretty big change. Why did you want to become involved in politics?
Jack, great question. I guess the best way to answer it is it's a way to continue to serve. The running joke kind of when I first was making the transition and running even just for the contested nomination was that I want to continue to serve Canada. I just don't have to wear a uniform anymore, don't have to shave every day, but frankly, you're wearing a jacket and tie half the time or a suit, so you're sort of in uniform. And the military even changed just in my final year why I was in Baghdad to allow Canadian Armed Forces members to grow beards. So it's actually, they've even changed that rule a bit. But in reality, I loved my career in the Canadian Armed Forces. I still could have served another decade. I have no complaints, but I have zero regrets about the transition. It was a great way for me to get back to my hometown area where it's always been home for me. I've always voted in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. It's a unique privilege that members of the Canadian Armed Forces have, that they get to vote federally in their wherever they enrolled or where they're from originally, if they never change that, if they want to keep it that way. So I've always been a voter in Bruce-Grey-Owen Sound. So it's been great to then now be the elected member for the riding. But it's just, to me, it's a way to continue to make a difference. It's the only thing I've known my whole adult life. Joined the military right out of high school, and as Gabe, as you mentioned, I came straight out of Iraq. I flew out of Baghdad, Iraq, January 2nd, got back to Canada January 3rd of 2019, took my uniform off on January the 11th, and on the 18th of January, when my predecessor, Larry Miller, decided he wasn't going to seek re-election, I threw my name into the hat and jumped right into a contested nomination race that I was fortunate to win, and then luckily get elected in October. So it's been a busy last couple of years, but as I said, I have zero regrets, and I'm glad I made it.
Well, that is a great story. First of all, I mean, it's definitely an inspiring story. You were overseas, and in the matter of a couple weeks, you were from in the military overseas, half the world away, to running for office. Basically, you were starting those steps, and like you said, it was a big change, but it was also serving your country still. And I think that it just shows there's so many ways you can serve your country, whether it's in the military or in parliament or working in the public service or working in across Canada and the different professions that so many people have in Canada that serve our country.
Just to add to that, I think the best way everybody serves Canada is by voting and getting involved in the democratic process. So I thank you for the work you're doing with the Ontario High School Conservative Association to actually step forward and get more youth involved in the democratic process, because I think that's how we all make a difference. And it's a privilege that not a lot of nations still don't have So thank you for everybody that's getting involved in the process, and you are serving the country just by voting when you're
Thank you.
allowed to vote.
Yeah, I mean, as young people, we still can't vote yet. We're 14 to 18-year-olds. I mean, some of our members are going to be starting to vote in the next election, whenever that is, whether it's fall or summer or next year, whenever that is. But like you said, just get out to vote. That's the biggest thing that you can do. It happens once every 2 to 4 years, to whatever majority, minority, no matter what. If you just vote, as if you're an adult, and even if you're a young person, just you can buy your membership, you can choose your candidate, and see who's going to run to be your next member of parliament, and you're able to join that process. So the second question is from Javier in Ottawa, and he asks, why did you choose to join the Conservative Party over any other party?
Well, to be frank, I'm a true fiscal conservative. I'm not a big fan of deficits ever. Grew up on a small, family farm, more of a hobby farm, but the eldest of 5 boys, we didn't have a lot of money. We came from very modest background, and I learned that, if you don't have money, if you can't afford it, you don't get it. So, I mean, I'm a true fiscal conservative at heart. If you don't have it, you don't have the money, you can't get it, and you shouldn't be spending money that we don't have. And especially, I have a young daughter who she's 7, almost 8 this summer. I'm concerned about her. I'm concerned about you and the whole association, about the level of deficit and national debt that you're going to inherit from this current Liberal government, and the impact that that's going to have on your income taxes, on taxes in general, and the impact it potentially has on some of the great social programs that Canada has that makes us a phenomenal nation. The other thing that I think truly makes me conservative is we're the only party left that's a big tent party that allows diversity of opinion, differences of opinion, and we respect each other for it. Doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but that we allow that level of, I don't want to use the word dissent, but differences, and that we can respect each other for it. We can run on that, and we believe in the freedom of expression, our chartered rights, and in this country, and standing up for who we are as a nation. We have a much stronger defense sort of stance, but in the end, we are founded, by Sir John A. Macdonald. I know he's got some bad press in the last couple of years with respect to a bunch of challenges that were, that ongoing, and differences that occurred back then. But at the same time, I do encourage people to read really about the challenges that occurred when Canada was becoming a nation. And remember that down in the United States at the time, they were going through a civil war, and if we didn't want to become part of the United States, there was some great work done by some, Canadians at the time, and Sir John A. was one of them. So I think those are some of the key reasons why I decided to join the Conservative Party of Canada. But it's something that my family has been involved in as a youth. I was a member, not an active one per se, of the back in the day of the PC party back when I was a teenager, because my dad's always been involved actively. He was involved in municipal politics. But to be frank, a quick story: my great grandmother, who's been gone now for over 25 years, she passed away a couple of years before I joined the military. She was born in 1897, lived to her 93rd year. I lived with her when she was still living on her own when she was 90. But she came from a diehard conservative family. And my father joked back in the 70s, we had there was a Liberal running in the riding, or represented the riding, and Dad told her one day that he had told his grandmother that he had voted for this Liberal member, and she went and told my grandpa, like my dad's dad, and said, "Tell Tom to quit fibbing to me," because she couldn't believe that he would ever vote for somebody other than a conservative. So, I mean, I do come from very conservative background as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Conservative Party, like you said, is such a big party. You see the left wing, and they're split up. You have the Liberals, which are, I guess, centrist, left. They just tend to whoever they can get votes from in the current election. Whenever that happens, they just get from whoever they can get votes from. And you have the NDP, and then you have like the smaller parties like the Green Party and all that. But then the Conservative, I mean, we're basically the whole right wing of Canada. That's what we are. And we have so many people like we have fiscal conservatives like yourself. We have social conservatives. There's so many different people in our party. And that's why our party, I think, is so great. And we can lead the country. And under Aaron O'Toole, he can lead the country and get us out of this mess. Like your daughter and myself and my members in the group, the members in OHSCA, students across Ontario and across Canada. Justin Trudeau's giving us the bill. Like he's doing this outrageous spending, which I guess during the pandemic he had to spend a lot of money. Obviously, all governments are, but he's doing this outrageous spending, and we're gonna be the ones stuck with the bill.
I agree.
So the next question comes from the OHSCA team, the whole team, and we ask, what are some leadership skills that you learned from the military that help you with being an MP?
Well, I guess the first one I'll talk about is a little bit about dealing with the pandemic. I think I'm likely better prepared in a lot of ways than any of the other 337 elected MPs because the military, constantly pushes you. Our training system, regardless of what rank you are in the military, there's a level of training that you need to go through. But in particular, as an infantry officer, our phase training that I went through back in the mid-90s really pushes you to your limits. You're pushing yourself mentally and physically to perform in leadership roles. And when you're working off of 5-6 hours sleep for the week, and you're doing 40-50 kilometers a day of patrolling and platoon attacks, etc., and then you're still being thrust into leadership roles, you learn to push yourself, and that's what I loved about being in the Canadian Armed Forces, is that it really pushed me to understand more my own limitations, and that the fact is, I honestly believe this, most Canadians, for anybody, you're very capable of doing a lot more than you sometimes believe. And so you should always believe in yourself. And so the military helps to develop that self of confidence. I think there's a level of self-confidence without being, having a big ego. But at the same time, it's helped train you and prepare you. The other unique challenge that I think the military prepared me very well for is the constant change. We change roles every 2 years, and that's what I loved about it. You were never bored. And so I think that's another unique piece that we develop in there, is that you get used to the chaos. One of the things that we always say when we develop plans in the Canadian Armed Forces is the enemy gets a vote too. It never survives crossing the line of departure. It's a little bit like that in politics. You can come up with your political strategy, how we want to bring forth a motion or go after, when you're in opposition, the government on a certain policy, but ultimately the way the media reacts, the way the voters react, the way the other parties react, you need to be nimble on your feet. You need to be flexible. You need to be adaptable, and you need to sort of think quickly. So I think those are all some unique skill sets. But ultimately, the biggest lesson I learned as a leader in the Canadian Armed Forces was about teamwork. It's about, even though people view the military as this very autocratic, style of leadership, or that there's a chain of command, that's true. But ultimately, the successful leaders in the Canadian Armed Forces are those that get the maximum out of every single member of the team. And I think that's key in politics, even when you're working, whether it's with your great constituency staff, but the volunteers that support you during an election campaign. Not everybody has that same skill set. Not everybody does things exactly the same way, but it's trying to figure out how to maximize their strengths and bring everybody together. And it's the same, obviously, here in Ottawa, dealing with our elective caucus and our MPs, is figuring out, hey, how's the best way? Certain people are great orators, are great to speak during the debate. Other people are really good at doing that sort of nugget work and getting behind the scenes, and others are really good at just being that representative for their constituents that really feel appreciated and communicate well. So I think that's the key thing that the military taught me more than anything, was the importance of working as a team.
Well, those are all great skills that you learned in the military that, like you said, a lot of other MPs may not have had that firsthand experience. They may understand those skills, but you were in the military and had that experience. And I think that, I mean, obviously we thank you for stepping up in the military and then becoming an MP, but I think that if many more people learn that, even if they aren't in the military, learn some of the skills of hard work and what you learned in the military, we would have a really great system in Canada. We already do, but it would be 10 times better if we used what you went through and learned and use that to continue on in parliament and debate and all that, like you said.
So here's a point that I'm not proposing as a conservative plank or anything like that. It might even be a little contentious, but I'd ask you to survey your membership and ask them what they would think about if it was mandatory for all high school students upon graduation or finishing school, if you had to just go through basic training, not serve in the military necessarily, but just actually go through a 6-week, 7-week basic training program. And why I think it would be great for our society and great for Canada isn't because of any indoctrination or anything like that, or teaching you about the military. This isn't about learning how to, protect yourself or anything like that, or, use firearms safely. This to me would be about learning some basic leadership skills, but more importantly, pushing you, going back to the point I made earlier about challenging yourself and finding out what your own limitations are. When you go through basic training, when I went through it in Chilliwack back in '93, the first time you're rappelling off a 120-foot cliff, and you're, especially if you got fears of heights, when you're doing a rucksack march and you don't know how far you're marching for, and you're exhausted and you're tired and you're working together as a team. I think these are all unique little things that you develop some unique skill sets and you get some training. I think in 6-7 weeks, I think it would be fascinating to see how that could impact society if we all went through that as part of the thing. And because I'm a big believer in that thing, so please ask your membership and see what the general consensus is. And again, this isn't me proposing this as a mandatory or something that we from a party perspective. That's just Alex Ruff's personal opinion, having spent 25 years in the military.
Just an idea. And I think that, like the military, like you said, it's those 6-7 weeks would be the best training, leadership training skill you could probably get just from learning that. And I think as a society, I mean, we can actually put out a poll on this in our Twitter account and see what people think about this, whether just as an idea, people, watchers, let us know in the comments below what you think about that. And on our Twitter account, definitely we can talk about that as well soon. Now, the fourth question is from Evan in Ottawa, and he asks, "How do you think that the Conservative Party of Canada can be more diverse and invite many more people of all walks of life to the party?"
Very interesting question. I think we're already there, but we can always do better. Some of it's perception, and we don't do a good job of messaging and communicating and combating some of the messaging and attacks that go on from a partisan perspective from the other party. So we get painted with this brush sometimes that we're not as open to different points of view, etc. But I disagree with that, right? I think, as we talked about at the start, we're the only big tent party. I think majority of new immigrants that come into Canada actually share conservative values more than the other party's values on certain issues. So I think there's just that willingness to feel accepted. But just look at how broad our party is and how well we're represented. You mentioned a few of them, my colleagues that you're going to have on here. But I mean, the unique privilege that I've had, and what I've mentioned countless times when I talk to different groups, I've traveled the world. I've been in a number of countries for months on end, but I think I've lately been to over 30 different countries. But in those countries where I've spent a lot of time, like Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq, I've yet to meet a Bosniak, an Afghan, or an Iraqi at the average one that's any different than an average Canadian. They're just human beings. It doesn't matter what their background is, what their religion is, what their sexual preference is. They're just human beings that want to live in peace, put food on the table, have their kids grow up with greater opportunity. And I think that's a message that we need to continue to push out. I know Aaron's doing a great job as the leader of the party to get that out there. It's judging people on their actions and what they do, not judging them based on where they came from or what their religion is or what their ethnic background is or their sexual preference. That isn't how you should ever judge anybody. We're all just human beings. And I think we're a party that does accept that. We have some, some great things. I spoke at the, coming from a less ethnically diverse riding in Midwestern Ontario, we have a growing Muslim population within the riding, a mosque. I went and spoke at it, as did some of the other party candidates in the last election. They all were welcoming to us. And it wasn't even really a political conversation. It was more just a conversation about us as individuals and what we personally believe in. And I found I received some great support from the community and had no problem interacting and talking with them. So, with a different group that's not as prevalent in my riding. My own family, my daughters of mixed ethnic background. As I said, I don't judge people based on anything other than the actions that they take, and we, that's the most important thing in my viewpoint.
Well, our Conservative Party, there's the people that come to Canada have can see themselves in the Conservative Party, like their values, like in Aaron O'Toole's inaugural speech in the House of Commons as leader, and at the Conservative leadership convention, I guess you could call it, last year, the 1 a.m. speech in 2020, August 2020, he said, it doesn't matter your walks of life, your sexual preference, your skin color, your religion, you can see yourself in the Conservative Party. And we've seen his pictures of, you can see yourself in the mirror as a Conservative. And I think that's what we need to remember, that everybody in Canada can see themselves as a Conservative. They just need to look at our party, see if they agree with our policy, and that's what it is. And like you said, it really is your personality and what you believe in. It's you coming to our party, and we have so many great candidates and MPs from so many walks of life in our party. We have Leslie Lewis, who is running for leadership. She is amazing. I was supporting her during the campaign. We have so many more people in the Conservative Party joining us. Jermaine Chambers down in Brampton West, he was just acclaimed as candidate there. Melissa Lanceman in Thornhill. There's so many people from so many different walks of life with so many different backgrounds that are in the Conservative Party. And I think that's what we need to be proud of, and we need to keep building on that and be a true diverse government and not a fake diverse government like Justin Trudeau's government that he just balanced cabinet, but just because of what they are and their identity politics, not because of their actual merit. And like I said with Marilyn Gladu, people in the Conservative Party are here on merit and they deserve to be here, and everybody does a great job at that. So before we wrap up, we always like to have a casual chat about young Conservatives and how they can get more involved. So what do you think that young high school Conservatives can do to get more politically active, and what is one piece of advice you could give them?
Get smart on it, get educated, do your homework. As much as I remember, I wasn't a big homework fan in high school myself, but get educated on the issues that matter to you, especially locally. I mean, all politics really start locally, and so find out those issues, but ask questions. Do exactly what you're doing right now, is reach out. I love speaking at my local high schools in my riding, and it's something I've been doing for years. When I was in the military, I'd love to educate and talk to schools. I think I would have been a teacher if I hadn't joined the military, just because I believe in it so much. I think teachers are actually the most important job in the world, because it is so vital. Now, I don't want to get into a dialogue or discussion about, because it's a provincial jurisdiction, about what should be in the education programs, etc., and how that gets balanced, so that, to me, politics don't become involved in your education curriculum. But ultimately, I think the key thing to do is reach out and talk. Talk to your MP. I'm sure talk to your other levels of elected officials, whether it's municipal or provincial, because they can all provide you some context. And I know that's the biggest issue. Hayden, that's on from my office. Hayden's at second year here at Ottawa U. but from the riding, he got involved. And when I was running last time, he was involved with Model Parliament. I have another Graham that just started in the office this week, who just finished up university, or not, he's in his second year, I believe, as well. And Graham's now working there, because I think that's a great opportunity for any of, especially the association and your group. If anybody wants to volunteer with their, if they have an elected MP, conservative MP, I'm sure they'll take you on to even just as a volunteer. And if they have the flexibility within their budget, they may even hire you for part-time hours. And it's a great way to help and get engaged, because the biggest thing is just ask the questions, you don't got to read all the legislation, but understand the issues and what they're hearing, and ask questions and get clarity on it.
Exactly. And if there's one thing that I've heard from so many, you're my 12th interview now, so we've had 11 other guests on, and most of them say the same thing. Just reach out, like you just said, reach out when it's election time. I'm sure the local conservative candidate would just love to have you on their campaign. The more volunteers, the merrier, and to have a young perspective there with them to help them on their campaign, whether you're just putting in signs in the ground or giving out information packets to to citizens, or actually calling people or working the campaign office. Just get involved. I mean, just there's so many opportunities, and that's all I can say, and I'm sure that's what you can say as well. So thank you, Alex, for your time today. We really appreciate you having you on the show. I know it's busy for you down in Parliament Hill. It's getting busy. The budget just came out, and it's almost May now. Actually, no, it's May now at the time of this premiere, but it's the busy time of year, and we really thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much, Gabe, for having me. I'll leave you with two messages. One is, everybody out there watching and listening, believe in yourself. That's the key thing that I'll recommend you is, it doesn't matter the obstacles or the challenges, believe in yourself, and I think you'll be successful in life. And finally, is I do like to make recommendations sometimes. Go out and read the book, The Power of One by Bryce Courtney. It's a great read, and I think you'll get inspired by reading it. It has nothing to do with politics. It's just a great read to learn about how one individual, one young boy, can make a difference in the world. So read it and you'll have fun.
Yes, read many books. There's so many great books out there. That's also uh, a great suggestion. Just the more that you read, the more that you know, like Dr. Seuss says. And that is it. We really thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our video today. You can look for more videos coming soon. Make sure to follow our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts at Ontario HS Cons for more info about our next interview and for more great content. Make sure to look at our website at ontariohsconservatives.org for everything that we do. You can see everything there. And make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification button so you never miss another interview. We have so many more great interviews coming up. We are going to be lined up for the next month or so, and we hope that you can join us again, and we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.